Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Diamonds and Rough podcast. I'm joined with Bobby, and we're going to talk about baseball. I don't think many people care about it, but it's been a fantastic season, and I wanted to talk about it regardless of who listens or cares. So, what do you think of the season? Obviously, new rule changes. We'll start with that before we get into the matchups.
I liked and disliked them. I thought the pace of play um, was expectedly bumpy. I think the transition to it wasn't well implemented. I don't think the umpires even knew what they were doing for a good portion of the season, at least leading up to the All Star break. Um, the bigger bases I enjoyed, the more steals. Everyone likes more runs. It's exciting. Um, I'm one of those people I don't really care about how quickly the game goes. So the game's being shorter, hit or miss, I don't really care. If they're being forced to be shorter, it's not as fun. But the pace of play overall, for the more casual viewer, I think was better and more accessible.
I mean, I definitely think it was more exciting. I mean, it was kind of expected to be bumpy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the way the MLB implements these changes is they put them in the lower leagues, see how they do. And even in minors, it was rough at the start, these changes. But then
Yeah,
eventually they saw the improvements, which really the rule changes did every single thing they wanted it to do, which was lower the time of games, increase the steals, more exciting fielding plays, um, more like doubles and triples, because everyone wants to see these guys being athletes, right? And that's what the
mm-hmm.
game did. But I overall enjoyed it a lot. I thought this MLB season was incredible.
It was definitely an exciting season from a purely fan standpoint, ignoring the rule changes, just enjoying baseball, enjoying players. I mean, the mantra that they had a few years ago that they seemed that was almost tongue in cheek of let the boys play. They didn't really let them, and I feel like this is one of the first years that they really just are just letting them play, let them do their thing.
Now, I have a question. Do you think these rules impacted any team in terms of they didn't make the playoffs or had a disappointing season because of these rule changes?
I'm gonna go with the Mets.
The
I think
Mets.
I think they benefited the worst from these rule changes in terms of strain on players. I think Scherzer's injury can be heavily attributed to the speeding up of play and the wear on his arm. I
I
think
mean,
I think
Verlander as well, right?
I think you can see a lot more pitcher injuries. I'm not going to say it's more than average because I don't have the numbers on hand, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were more. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of McClanahan, Alcantara, Scherzer, DeGrom. I mean, DeGrom's a walking injury, but at the same time, it doesn't help.
Yeah. Another team I'd consider, not necessarily the injury things, but I don't think the hitters on this team really benefit from a pitch count is the Padres. I mean, you got guys like Soto and Machado. I don't think they like a pitch count. And I
If
think
you
that's why they had kind of down years. Soto, it took a while to get used to it.
if you look at their numbers as a team, they still performed. They had the second best offense in a lot of the important metrics. It was the problem. The problem with them, in my opinion, was they were so top heavy that you had their 1 through 5 hitters hitting the cover off the ball, but then six, seven, eight, nine just couldn't do anything once the dudes were on base.
They had a really bad start.
Oh, definitely. They started slow, and that doesn't help them. But when Soto, Machado, Tatis, and Bogarts all got hot, and no one was driving them in. Soto was top 5 this season in um, getting on
He
base.
finished very well.
No, ignoring that, yeah, he did, but he was on base in the top 5 most in the league. He scored 100 less times than all the other dudes in the top 5 did because people just weren't driving him in.
Right.
He was on base more than Acuna by about I think 20, but Acuna scored 70 more runs.
Okay. That's also the Braves offense.
Oh, 100% it is. And that is the outlier, but it is drastic when he's on base at as much, if not more, and just isn't being scored. That's a
Correct.
systemic problem. That's a team problem.
Correct. Yeah, they definitely underperformed. That's why I wasn't sure if the new rules had anything to do with it.
I'm sure you
Because,
make the argument that they did.
definitely not like, I mean, I don't know how many games they won last year, but definitely not like a 20 plus game difference or however many it was, right?
Mhm.
But maybe a little bit. All right. Let's get into matchups. I think we should start with the AL. Um, in the first matchup, we're going to go 6-3. Blue Jays, Twins. Now, the wild card games are best of three.
Mhm.
So I personally have the Twins in this one. And I know the public is heavily believing in the Blue Jays, which is interesting to me.
I mean, if you look record wise, the Blue Jays would be the 3 seed if they were in any other division.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure off the top of my head. They might be the 2 seed. I'm not sure what the West records ended up shaking out at, but they're better than a wild card team. They're better than being the sixth team in the AL.
Well, they wouldn't be
So
the two because of the Rays.
sorry, you're right.
They, it
Well, no, they
looks,
would be because the Rays are still a wild card team. I'm saying if you move the Blue Jays, yes, I get what you're saying. If the Rays were in
if
another
you
division, they'd be
ordered it in record, the Blue
yeah.
Jays would be fifth, it looks like.
Really? Okay,
Because
so
they
the West,
were
West did it better.
a
Okay,
game behind the Rangers and Astros.
okay, so it came
But
close, but still, I the Twins are good. I mean, Sonny Gray, he'll probably win his game. He's probably you're assuming going to go first.
yep, he'll go first and then Lopez.
So they give him a good shot. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it depends on what version of Vladdy you get. He really cooled
Of
off at the end
course.
of the year. But if he gets even just a little bit hot, I think that offense is one of the most dangerous in baseball.
I think something that's also important is that Royce Lewis, who's coming on at the end, he is currently injured. He might not play game one. He
Mhm.
was it 4 or 5 grand slams in a month or
Yeah, it was.
something
I
ridiculous.
can't remember exactly, but yeah, no, he was really coming on.
Former number one overall pick, I believe.
I believe so.
So he is kind of, I feel like they're wild card. They have a couple wild card guys in the lineup, but another big stat I think I care about when it comes to playoffs is how many home runs are you hitting? I feel like in the playoffs when the game slows down, it's kind of like, can you have a big moment to completely change the game? And you look at home runs in that case, and the Twins have almost 50 more than the Blue Jays as a team. So that's kind of a big stat I'm looking at when it comes to that. And also they just have a pretty solid bullpen, and you're ending with Duran, which is kind of tough to face if you're the other team.
Hmm. I mean, we've both been vocal about how much we respect his pitching.
Oh, he's insane.
He's quite remarkable, but
Yeah, but I think this will actually be an entertaining series.
it should be. It definitely. I I would imagine both teams grab at least one, but you never know. 3 game series are a bit more unpredictable. The better team doesn't always win.
Yeah, because I believe for the Twins, it's going to be Gray, Lopez, John Gray.
Mhm.
And then the Blue Jays will be Gaussman, who had an incredible year again. Bassett, Barrios. I don't know the order. But you also, with the Twins, since you have shorter rotations, they have a guy like Maeda who had a great year. He's going to be in the bullpen now, which might help them even more for that.
So is Joe Ryan out for the playoffs?
No, I
No.
believe he'll be the third.
Okay.
I believe so. Who I really like him as a pitcher.
So
I
right,
think
he
he's
had a
pretty
bit of a
underrated.
down year. Injuries kind of plagued him for a bit, but
Yeah. So what was it? Did you pick Blue Jays?
yes,
Simply because I'm guessing you think Vlad Guerrero will do better than he did
I
regular
think that
season.
entire offense kind of they're a rally away from it just being a very scary team to face.
Very true. Very
Uh,
true.
I could see them also if they win a game, they're a momentum based team, which I know isn't exactly something that's as prevalent in baseball as it is in other sports, just simply by the sheer number of games played. But you get them hot. I could see them running into the playoffs, getting really hot. And the AL wasn't separated by many games.
Correct. Well, they had the really fun wild card last year versus the Mariners,
Mhm.
where I think they blew the first game.
Yes.
Yep, they were up like 9-4 or 9-5. They were up big multiple times, but all right. So already we don't agree. I feel like we're gonna disagree on a lot of these, to be honest with you.
And you already know who I'm picking for the World Series, so I can see us disagreeing.
Yeah, we're gonna disagree, and you might get angry. But okay. Next is the 4-5, the Rangers and the Rays. Couple things I think to point out. Wander Franco is not going to play. We're not going to get into why.
Probably wise.
No Scherzer DeGrom for the Rangers.
No McClanahan.
No McClanahan for the Rays. So both teams pretty banged up. I do have the Rangers though, which is pretty bold.
I have the Rays.
And I completely understand it in terms of like pedigree with the Rays have just been there so many years in a row and they just figure out how to win. I just really like this Rangers lineup, to be honest with you. That's just my biggest thing.
Down the stretch, the Rangers did nothing to convince me that they wanted to be in the playoffs.
Fair enough.
And baseball is the one sport you really don't want to back into the playoffs, and that's what they did. So they're a good team. They have a lot of talented hitters. They're missing probably their two best players in Scherzer and DeGrom, at least pitchers. I know Seager and Semien both had really good years, but I think it does come down to a bit of an experience factor. And I think the Rays have been doing it for years and years, proving they haven't won it all, but they prove that they can do a lot with very little.
100%. They kind of had a wild year.
Yeah, that's
where
a bit of an understatement.
The one thing I'll say, which makes me hesitant on my pick, which you did point out, is in the postseason, it really does matter. Like, are you getting hot at the right time? Because with the Rays, you look, they were the hottest team in baseball with like not even close. And then in that middle, it was really ugly. So much so that the Orioles overtook them. But then in the end, they were one of the best teams in baseball once again. And the Rangers were kind of struggling towards the end. They seemed to have a pretty big lead. And they made it close, but they got it done and they're here. I do think there is a bit of energy with the first time getting back in the playoffs in a while that they're going to have. And they just, all the guys on their team hit the ball hard. So that's my reasoning. Definitely understand Rays though. So then in the divisional, I don't know how we're going to do this since we have different teams. But divisional's 5 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have the Twins playing the Astros. You'll have the Jays playing the Astros. Is it fair to say we both have the Astros regardless?
Yes.
Okay. Astros have just been there so many times.
No matter which team you want to say they're facing, the Astros have the advantage on both sides of the ball. They have better pitchers in both matchups, and they definitely have the better hitters. Even if you want to say that the Blue Jays hit the cover off the ball in the wild card round, going hot, I still think that I'd rather have the Astros bats.
100%. 100%. Even like Altuve came back sort of later in the year. And I wasn't expecting him to do as well as he did. Like he's getting up there, but he's still like elite. And
He doesn't get enough credit for how much he transformed his game.
100%.
Cheating allegations aside, he went from being a 10 home run, 50 stolen base player early in his career to now being a 30 plus home run hitter. And that's hard to do.
Yep. Big thing with him is the fielding, right? And have those miscues. But okay, not too much to talk about. Well, their rotation will be Verlander, who's back on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny how that all worked out, isn't it? He
Yes.
leaves Houston, get an absolute payday, and then Houston's like, "Yeah, we'll take you back, no problem. We know who you are. We know you're gonna be good for us. We're not worried." Um, and then I think Javier is injured,
I believe so.
so Valdez will be the two, which I feel like he threw a no hitter. But other than that, didn't he have a down year?
He had a very inconsistent year.
Okay.
Lots of highs and lows. I mean, he's an interesting pitcher. He always has been. He's that rare breed of pitcher who still pitches to contact and
Mm-hmm.
tries to get just ground ball outs, which when you're pitching a contact, a lot can go wrong. There's a much smaller window for mistakes. So
Oh.
when he's on, he's on. He looks like one of the best pitchers in the league. When he's bad, it looks really bad.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And then Hunter Brown's probably your three, right?
I'd have to assume so, yeah.
Yeah. I saw there's might be what's his name? I don't really know how to pronounce his name. Urquidy? Is that how you say his name?
Urquidy.
There's thought that he might be the three, which I guess he's the vet.
The experience factor, you don't want Hunter Brown to get shaken. I get that. I can see it.
Yeah. So there's a shot. He also had a decent end uh to the year. But regardless, Astros will be in the ALCS. Everyone will be mad about it. It's fine. Next, you have Rays versus Orioles. I have Rangers versus Orioles. I want to hear who you have winning.
Regardless, I have the Orioles moving on.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I
I
want
think
to hear the reason because Bautista's now out,
mm-hmm.
their closer. And I feel
They
like
still have Yanier Cano, who's as
yeah,
good of a replacement closer as you can have in house.
very true.
I think that we spoke earlier about getting hot at the right time, and they've been hot basically since the All Star break. They have a lot of young players who want it. They have the presumed rookie of the year in Gunnar Henderson. They have a future MVP in Adley Rutschman, and just a lot of young players with a lot of desire and just good in all facets of the game. They have speed, they have power, they hit the ball. They have two pitchers that have under a 2.5 since the All Star break. Um, it's a good team and they're hot at the right time.
You make a good case. What I'll say is because I picked the Rangers, if the Rangers move on, I would have the Orioles. If the Rays were able to pass the Rangers, I actually think the Rays would beat them simply because I do think with the Orioles, it's a bit of a too early type of thing. And I'm willing, if someone wants to say, well, they got hot last year and that was kind of their like warning to the league. And then they take the leap this year, so they're ready now. I feel like most fans, though, thought next year would be their year. Is
I
that
did.
fair to say?
One of my friends was very vocal. I think it was after they beat the Red Sox, the game we were at opening day. He's
Yeah.
a Cubs fan, so he loves just kind of ribbing me for being a Sox fan. We have just a nice rivalry going. But he even said he said he thinks it's the Orioles' year. He said I think they're a wild card team.
Well,
He
not a
even
wild
he
card
under
team.
even he undersold it a little bit, but he likes to point out that he was right and he was very vocal about it. But my rebuttal to that was I think they need a year more. I thought they'd be close. I thought they'd be over 500. I thought they'd be ahead of the Red Sox in the standings. I didn't see them being this hot.
Yeah, it definitely helps that like Bradish is like an ace because I think that was the big thing with the Orioles
Mm-hmm.
you were worried about is like who's gonna pitch in these games,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Grayson Rodriguez, who had a horrendous start, the elite prospect who came out. I remember I texted you like right at the beginning. I was like, I don't know how a guy like Yuri Perez isn't like rated higher than him. And then he had a terrible 10 starts, went back down to the minors, comes back up, great end. Obviously, some starts were better than others, but a good end, you think that's another guy. And then you bring John Means back, and Dean Kramer's even there if you want to go that route.
Dean Kramer went from being the forced ace of the team and
Forced ace.
to being the four starter and looking beyond serviceable. I think most teams would be happy with him as their four starter.
100%.
And just another note on Grayson Rodriguez, he has a 2.68 ERA since the All-Star break.
Yep.
That's spectacular.
Yeah, he had a very good second half. And I know this has been a developing talk or realization I think we've both had. Maybe more me so than you, but when we talk, but how valuable it is to have an elite catcher just throughout a regular season and throughout the postseason. It just elevates everyone, especially the pitching staff. And the Orioles probably have the best one.
I think there's a very strong case to be made that he's the best catcher, or at least very soon will be the best catcher.
Who would you say is better?
Honestly, I was just hedging because I can't think of all the catchers in the league right now.
I
I think there's a very strong argument that he could be.
I would say is some other guys I think about, and it's kind of like beyond the number stuff. Because if you look at the numbers, I think it's not even close. But like, I think the Braves guy, Sean Murphy, is a very, very good catcher. I think the Dodgers also have a good catcher
Will Smith is very good.
Will Smith. But Real Muto is obviously a great catcher. But to me, I think it's Adley, and it's not that close.
I think in a few years there will be zero debate.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that we can both say we went to opening day and saw him go like 5 for 5 and just clearly be the best player, and it wasn't even close.
Pitch two rows in front of us. I mean, it was
wild.
So, unfortunate as a Sox fan, good as a baseball fan.
Yes. All right, so in the ALCS will be the Astros versus we'll say the Orioles, because I think that would be the more entertaining matchup. Even though I think the Rays could get past the Orioles if they got there. I'm gonna say the Orioles. I'm just gonna say Astros simply based on experience. I know it's the boring pick. But that's just what I would go.
I think it's very reasonable. I don't think anyone's going to judge anyone who says that the Astros come out of the ALCS. Just for fun, I kind of want to see the Orioles.
Oh, I would love to see the Orioles. Don't get me wrong. I know they're in by division. Don't really care.
No, neither do I. It's kind of like one of those teams where I always just have like an AL and an NL team. But if you had to have a second AL team, the Orioles are such a fun team this year. They really are.
Yeah,
they have a very exciting future.
They're like close to America's team this year, I feel like.
They are. They really are.
Because if you want to like make a case for like, I don't know, like the Diamondbacks, like we're talking teams that have a chance. But that I would love that series.
I think it's very likely that that's what the series becomes, and I think it would be a very entertaining series, and I could easily see it going 7 games as well.
100%. Then I feel like, well, I wouldn't say that's what everyone wants. Everyone just wants the Orioles to win. They don't care if it's in 4. They don't care if it's in 7. But if it was a game 7 in Baltimore, that would be legendary.
Yes.
So we'll go to the NL now. First matchup, the 6-3 D-backs Brewers. I'm very happy the D-backs got in. They kind of shocked everyone. Probably not as much as the 5 seed in this.
Not us. I think we both bet them to go there over. We knew that.
Over. I didn't think playoffs though.
True.
We both absolutely love Corbin Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most exciting players in baseball. I think the stat was first player since 1900 to get like 20 homers and 50 stolen bases as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we need to remind some people he is a rookie because he's a superstar.
You wouldn't know it just by watching him. You would.
Yeah, he's a superstar. He literally is leading the team. They are exciting. I mean, they do kind of have a nice 1-2 punch in Gallen and Merrill Kelly, but
and even Zach Davies isn't a bad 3.
Yeah, although I'm hearing Taft might start.
Really interesting.
And I kind of understand it in the sense of if they're going to win this series versus the Brewers, which is honestly kind of a rough matchup for them. I
Very.
mean, the Brewers pitching all across the board is great. Now, kind of lucked out with Woodruff might be out. But I think they're looking at it as we need the variability of a guy who might just go in there and have the start of his life. And I think you go with the guy with the stuff, and that might be him. I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, Zach Davies, I feel like also might have a bit of like, Brewers are my former team. I'm gonna go out there and show them what they're missing, right? But yeah, I am gonna pick Brewers here.
I'm surprised. I knew how much you were enjoying the Diamondbacks all season. I was honestly expecting you to pick them, but yeah, I'm gonna go the Brewers as well, simply off the pitching. If
I
it, if it develops into a slugfest, I don't know if the Brewers could keep up necessarily, but I do stand with the fact that they're going to pitch better than the Diamondbacks can. Zach Allen's a great pitcher. He closes the seasons better than he starts them. At the same time, I just don't see them keeping up with Corbin Burns.
yeah, I think it goes 3. Um, but as much as I'm gonna be rooting
I
for
think
him,
Freddie Peralta is better than whichever 3-starter the Diamondbacks roll out.
oh, 1,000%. I mean, if it gets to 3, they're not winning.
Mm-hmm.
I also, what might be a good idea is, let's say Corbin Burns starts the game 1, just throw it, just put your 3 in. And then you got Gallen facing. Would Peralta be the 2 or the 3?
If what you're saying is right and Woodruff's out, I'd say Peralta's the 2.
And then Miley's the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might be smart for the Diamondbacks to go, look, we'll put Paft or Davies in against Burns, and then you put Gallen against Peralta and Merrill Kelly against Wade Miley. And you just go, we're going to have to win the last 2. It's bold, but I think that's your best shot at winning. Because if you put Gallen against Burns and you lose, it's just done at that point. That's my thought.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
But I'll be rooting hard for the Diamondbacks. I just think it's too early for them. I'm happy they made it, but we're gonna be a year or 2 early on this one. Next matchup is the Phillies versus the Marlins. I'm gonna be real. Don't see a way the Marlins can win. I believe Alcantara is not gonna be available. Yuri Perez is not gonna be available either. And the Phillies kind of got healthy at the right time. And
Bree Turner remembered what a baseball is at the right time.
which I hate Philly, but shout out to the Phillies fans doing what I didn't think they would do. I didn't think they'd be like patient with a guy and like give him a standing ovation. Because have you seen his stats since that standing ovation?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is so, to me, uncharacteristic of them. I didn't think they.
If you averaged out his last 40 games across a season, he'd have 60 home runs and 150 RBI.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
he's just been on the tear of his life.
it's ridiculous. My good friend's a Phillies fan, and he's just proclaimed to me since the start of the season when they had the early struggles, like, we just need to make the playoffs. I really don't care. Just make the playoffs and you're fine. And I think that's the most accurate thing you can say about the Phillies. They're a loaded team. I don't think this will be a struggle for them.
Agreed.
All right. Yeah, not too much to say. But Arise, you're a pretty good player. We'll give the Marlins some flowers there.
No, they're not a bad team by any means. They have the pieces. It's kind of just the coaching at this point. And that's been their missing piece in my opinion, but it's been much better over the last, I don't know, what, 2 years they've been better, 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if they had Sandy and Perez, it's more of a conversation.
I
Because
agree.
those are 2 pitchers where they could just dominate, and then, they steal 2 games because of that. But Also, something I didn't note, just because I don't know how many people listen and aren't too familiar with how the baseball playoffs works. Whoever's the higher seed, every game's at home for the wild card.
Mhm.
So it is like a real home field advantage in the wild card. It's not like that in the NLDS or NLCS, but so Miami's gonna have to go to Philly for 3 games if it goes to 3.
Yes.
But next up is Brewers versus Dodgers. The Brewers to me are just like a team you don't want to play in this playoffs because their pitching is so good. I know their hitting um could be better. I think they were pretty low in the hitting statistics. I could be wrong on that. Um, but their pitching is elite. I am gonna go Dodgers though. I
Oh,
just think
definitely.
they're
That's,
I
I
just think
think
they're too good.
I think it's probably Dodgers in 3 also.
Yeah, I mean,
They're a better team on both sides of the ball. They just they've been here. I think I saw they've been in the playoffs every year since 2013. They know what they're doing.
yeah, I don't.
I don't like them. It pains me to say that. I like the Brewers way more, but they're just
I
a
mean,
better
yeah,
team.
I really just like 3 players on their team. One of them isn't playing, but I like Mookie Betts. Obviously, it's painful to see him every day suit up for them.
Very.
You probably agree with this, like Freddie Freeman.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah. And then as growing up a pitcher, I love Walker Bueller. I think he's so nasty.
I agree.
Um,
And something that made me like him even more this year. Not sure if you follow the Just
the he's
Baseball
on that
podcast,
podcast, yeah.
but he's been on with them every Monday. So Peter and all of them, they're great content. But watching him, that's made me like him even more. And I liked him before that. I liked him his rookie year when he was pitching against the Red Sox in 2018 in the World Series, and he shut us down that game. Just absolutely shut
Every Red Sox fan watched that and was like, this dude's gonna be a problem. I really don't want to play him again. Because I mean, at that point you thought you had a dynasty. Instead, we just traded all the guys. But um,
us
that's a Red Sox depressing story we can get into another day. Um, but yeah, I mean, Kershaw's just been chilling, waiting for the playoffs. And the few starts he had this year, he was elite.
Mhm.
I don't get it. I don't get how he's still like this.
No,
But
he is very much doing what Brady did in football and just defying all the preconceived notions about time and how old a player gets before they can fall off. So
I don't know if I sent you. You might have sent me the video, but so there was a game between the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, and the starters were supposed to be like the old like
yes, yeah, Randy Johnson and
Randy
Greg Maddux.
Johnson, Greg Maddux, and then it ended up being 2 young prospects. Who really cares? And it was Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer.
Yeah, fans went expecting to see one Hall of Fame matchup, and they saw another. They just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, they just didn't know at the time. But yeah, Dodgers should be easy. Then we got Phillies Braves. I know where you're going.
Braves in 3.
Here's what I'm gonna say. If the Braves win this matchup, they will win the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go bold. And it pains me to say it because I hate Philly. But I think the Philly roster, when it comes to the playoffs, is that much better. Like, I think everyone elevates. Like, they're all postseason players. And I think they still feel that World Series loss and wants that revenge. So I am going Phillies, and I think it's going to be a classic series, and it's going 5. Saying 3 is disrespectful. That's crazy from you.
I don't actually think 3. I hope it's 3. I won't be surprised if it goes
Is
3.
this your most feared matchup?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the only thing that could have been worse was if the Dodgers somehow ended up in the wild card and Braves had to face them first round. That's the only other worst case scenario. But no, other than that, that's 100% the worst possible draw for the Braves.
To me, this is their
But
toughest matchup.
agreed.
I
They
think
play them well. They have the division rivalry.
because I think if they win this, they beat the Dodgers in like 5 or 6.
But I will mention, I think there's one X factor on the Braves. Ronald Acuna wasn't healthy for their World Series run,
For sure.
and he has been very vocal about how much that pains him. He's coming off one of the most statistically impressive seasons of all time. He's done something that no one's ever done before, and I don't think, at least in my opinion, I don't think there's another guy in the MLB who can do that currently. I'm talking like prospect. I'm not saying like, oh, they'll do it next year. I'm saying in their careers, I don't think there's a guy in the MLB who will come close. Maybe Corbin Carroll or Bobby Witt are the only two that even possess the power and speed.
Those are
But
the only two right off the bat that have a shot. And
I also don't think they're on the teams to be able to have the freedom to steal 85 bases, I think is what it took Acuna to get there.
um Carroll, I don't think so. Bobby Witt, I mean, you're looking at the Royals, it's kind of like I don't know how many years they got of like they need a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
so it wouldn't surprise me if like Bobby Witt's just going for stats because it's like we're not gonna win games.
But
Because I feel like when you're that young and you do these statistics, it's kind of like you're trying to be the greatest. You'll do whatever you got to do, and especially with these stealing rules, like steals are going to be inflated. It was still incredibly impressive.
no, even with everyone who was saying they were going to be inflated, no one imagined there was going to be 70.
And no one thought like a rookie's getting 67
Mhm.
on the worst team.
Exactly. Which, if we're all being objective, I think his 67 is even more impressive than Acuna's.
I would agree, simply because like the pitcher had to worry about who was facing because that
Exactly.
Braves lineup is so stacked. I'm
Couldn't worry about him stealing because you had to focus on Olson batting behind him, Riley batting behind him. So no matter
Albies.
where you put him in the lineup, there was somebody behind him who had more than 20 home runs. 7 of their 9 batters had 20 or more home runs. 5 of them had 30. You can't be spending any amount of thought. Esteury Ruiz, he's stealing, and there was just nothing they could do. He's on a
Yeah.
team where you're not afraid of us. I can't name a player on their lineup besides him.
The only guy I can name is because I had him in fantasy for a bit. He was ranking as Brent
Oh, Brent
Rooker.
Rooker.
But
Yo,
then
you're right.
as
I
I
forgot about that.
dropped him,
Fell off astronomically.
yeah, I dropped him because he literally would just strike out like 3 times a game.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was a horrendous team.
Hey, they made me $200. I bet them to be the worst record.
Yeah. No, I remember I was we were doing bets and I'm like, Nationals to win more games than the A's is like -110. I'm hammering that. And like 20 games in, we're both like, yeah, so that's a win.
Hey, that one random 7-game win streak in June the A's had that made me stress a little bit, I'll be honest.
But even then, the Nationals were still like 7 games above them.
I was worried. So I wasn't worried about that, but I was worried about the Royals. Going into September, the Royals had more losses than the Athletics.
Oh yeah, I know. That was a big L by me. I thought the Royals would get that over wins. They were not even close.
Yeah, that was the only one I didn't tell you on. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
No, yeah, that's very fair. I deserve all the hate for that one from you, but because you were like, John, stop. But I do want to say, because I know I picked Phillies, but the Braves are one of the most disgusting teams I've ever seen. Like more so than that 2018 Red Sox team, which to me was like the greatest team I'd seen personally. Um, so if like the Braves are able to, because to me the Phillies, like if you're talking hitting and pitching, are comparable when I look at like Schwarber's going to be elevated in the playoffs. Harper's going to be elevated in the playoffs. All those things, which I don't think anyone can object to. I feel like it's a close matchup. If the Braves beat the Phillies, I think they're going to wipe whoever they play against. And another thing to note, the Phillies beat the Braves last year. And Strider had a rough start.
He did.
Kind of bold to think it'll happen again. to be objective.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's widely known at this point. I was very high on him before most people even knew who he was, just simply because of the mustache he had and just him calling himself Wild Thing from Durham Bulls, hysterical. Anyway, he's made some of the most outrageous comments ever. Every time he's on camera, it's a must watch. He's
did
almost like
you
Anthony
see the
Edwards.
no fans thing?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. He pitches better in front of no fans. He said that when he faces a worse team, he tries to strike them out more. He has a worse ERA against teams under 500 than over it because he said he tries to strike out every person.
Um, yeah,
So
but
I think he's aware of what he's doing, and I think he's very in control of what he's doing.
I will say the no fans thing that's not going to work in the playoffs.
No, I think it's the opposite.
Um, will he will have to pitch in Philly? Maybe not.
Maybe
Does he
not.
pitch
No,
game
he'll be the
one?
one. He'll be the one starter.
Yeah, and will the Braves go three starters? You think, or four?
Depends on if Freed and
Freed,
Morton are both healthy.
because some teams go four. If you do four and it goes to five, then Strider pitches five at Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but because he pitched in Philly last year, right?
I believe so.
And I do think he got a little rattled
It's definitely not a friendly place to
because
be.
it was a party there. No, I do want to say because I have a friend who lives in Philly and he's outside Philadelphia. Like it's kind of like a ways, maybe like 10 miles away from the stadium. And he maybe less, but he literally said like when Bryce Harper hit that homer in that Astros game, like when they like were coming back, like he was like, I heard the stadium.
Mhm.
It is quite the atmosphere for baseball. And it's
Definitely.
uh they're definitely gonna be games I want to watch
Oh,
because
easily. I
whenever
think the Braves are must-watch baseball for
Braves
the
are
entire.
also quite the atmosphere in baseball. Whenever baseball like crowds when they're on, it's like nothing better.
I mean, one of my bucket list items is to see a game at Truist because that atmosphere in Atlanta is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The whole feel however you want about the racial implications of it, but the tomahawk chop in the seventh inning stretch is electric.
Yeah.
I have some family down in the Atlanta area, and they said it's worth being in the city even if you're not in the game just to feel the atmosphere.
Yep.
I mean, cities are happier when their teams are good. I think you and I can attest to that. Boston was a place to be, even though it didn't turn out well for either team. It was still the place to be in April and May.
Yeah, for sure. And it was kind of funny, like just to do current events. The Patriots got decimated um by the Cowboys, and I think everyone universally is like Mac Jones isn't the guy. I'll go into this further in like a pod or something. But for some reason, every Boston fan was happy because we got Drew Holiday and we kind of just forgot about the Pats game. If that trade didn't happen, oh my god, no one would be happy today.
It's a good point.
Um, but enough about basketball and football. So you got Braves, I got Phillies, but what I'll say is if it's we both agree if Braves beat the Phillies, they're just gonna win. um if the Phillies beat the Braves, I think they lose to the Dodgers, to be honest. Just because I think for the Phillies to win, it's got to go like five. And I think the Dodgers will make quick work of the Brewers. And I think the Dodgers honestly really feel it from last year, disappointing that they have a lot of motivation to win.
I'm honestly, if we're gonna play out the hypothetical of the Phillies beating the Braves, I think they go on and they beat the Dodgers. I
Okay.
think I think for the Phillies to beat the Braves, it is going to be such an emotional battle that if they come out on top, they're going to be so on fire and just no one's going to stop them at that point. I think they are going to be that motivated and that just absolutely just ready to go.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the two. It's either they win and they're like, looking at the future, like we got to move on to the next, or they win and like that was their World Series.
Mhm.
It's one of the two.
I think after the last year that left a bitter taste in their mouth, I do think that they are run and they are mature enough. They're not a young team. I think for the Orioles, if the Orioles were in the Phillies position, I could see them. That would be the World Series. I think the Phillies are enough of a team where they're like, if they were to beat the Braves, they'd go ahead and go, all right, job's not done.
Yeah. I just feel like it's such a tall task to beat that team.
Oh, completely. And I could see a situation where it is such a just knock them down, drag them out battle where they have nothing left. It burns out their bullpen. They have to use starters as relievers, and they just
Yeah.
have nothing left. And that is totally a realistic scenario. And if that is what happens, the Dodgers will make very quick work of them. But if it is true baseball where it's starters going seven and it's just a low scoring game, which I can't see because both the offenses are too good,
That's
but
not how playoff baseball is anymore. It's kind of sad.
I
Like
agree.
we never, I mean, I'm gonna point to the LCS between the Sox and the Astros. Recently 2020, 2021.
2021.
I mean, Granke threw like two and a third. And that was like planned. It like these starters aren't going that long.
No, it's
And
all the sabermetrics. It's unfortunate.
no baseball fan likes it.
No.
And I do think our Lord and Savior Theo Epstein is working on trying to find a way to kind of fix that. Um, just because like baseball fans want to see these starters go for longer. It's more exciting when that happens.
Speaking of which, I'd love to see Theo return.
I've been hearing this. I don't see it.
I don't
I
either.
I think he wants to fix baseball. I don't think he wants to like run a team again. I think he's like been there, done that. I
I
stopped
do
the two longest droughts in MLB history. I have nothing left to prove.
what I will say though is I do think that if the Red Sox were to approach him, give him his number, say, here's a write the number on this piece of paper, that type of deal. What's your number? What will it take? And then tell him that the job comes with just a blank checkbook of you can sign who you want to sign.
If they threw the book at him, I think he'd definitely like think about it, entertain it, mull it over. But I think ultimately he'd be like, no. But um, Red Sox, that's a conversation for another day. Um, let's okay. So we agree that we'll talk Braves Astros if that hypothetically is it. Um, to me, like they're both veteran teams with experience. The Braves are just better in every single aspect. If they matched up with the Astros, I don't see a way the Astros could pull it off.
I don't see the winner of the World Series coming out of the AL.
Agreed.
I think any of the three hypotheticals we laid out, the Braves beating the Phillies and running away with it, the Phillies coming out impassioned and beating the Dodgers, or them being so beat down that the Dodgers beat them. I think any of those three teams beats either the Orioles or the Astros, assuming those are the two teams that come out.
Now, what I do want to say is Phillies or Braves would win in like five.
Mhm.
Because the Phillies also lost to them last year in the World Series. Dodgers, I think it might take a little more work.
Mhm.
Um, so Dodgers, Astros, that'd be the trifecta, huh?
God, that's what every baseball fan's dreading. If that's the World Series,
Well, yeah. And
it'd be
that
like
is actually
it'd be the least watched.
that is what I have written down.
That'd be one of the least watched World Series ever.
Yeah, I think the most what do you think the most watchable World Series is? Definitely the Orioles coming out of the AL.
Braves Orioles.
You think Braves? You don't think
I think at this point in the season, people want to see Acuna.
hmm.
I think there's been so much talk and hype around him and his chase for 40-70. I mean, not even 40-70. It started as 30-60, and all of a sudden he just found a new level.
No,
I
we were
I texted you back, I think it was like early
yeah,
September saying if hypothetically, if Acuna
Hypothetically, we
scored
got 40
70,
70. What are you doing? I was like, I mean, maybe, but I think we're in dreamland now. Um,
he Betts found his different gear in August, and Acuna said, "All right, Bet, watch this."
so the big thing for me, because we had this debate, and I conceded at the end, and it was mainly the Braves Dodgers series. I mean, when the MVPs go head to head, whoever beats it usually is gonna come out on top. I mean, we can even look at the NBA.
Mhm.
Embiid beat Jokic, and Embiid had like a 50-some point game where he beat the Nuggets, and that was
He
kind of
whined
a
for that.
big.
He whined for that MVP. That's a
And
whole
I lost
conversation.
so much respect for him because he didn't play in the rematch
Mhm.
because he had calf tightness. Um, but again, not trying to bring other sports in. Acuna is the MVP. I've conceded, and I think we're gonna bring up just baseball again because I think Peter said it perfectly, and he kind of said the same thing I've been saying to you, which is like, yes, Mookie Betts is more impactful to his team. If you switch Mookie Betts and Acuna, they probably have the same record. If you switch Acuna and Betts, I don't know if they have the same record. Regardless, you can't ignore what he's done. You can't ignore his statistics and his record and all that. And for me, the big thing is like when they were head to head, Acuna definitely showed up every single game. And he definitely had the more complete season. That's kind of had a slowish start, but he kind of came on at the end.
Mhm.
But I think that's going to wrap it up. What we both agreed is an NL team is winning.
Yes, definitely.
And I agree that if the Braves get past the Phillies, it's the Braves. Um, but I'm excited.
Should be very fun to watch.
Starts tomorrow or today, because I'll probably upload this tomorrow morning. Um, it'll be fun, and I cannot wait. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Um, I should be doing the normal stuff this week with spreads and whatnot. But anything else, Bobby?
Just want to see Acuna go out there and ball.
Just want to see Acuna go out there and ball. Fair enough. All right, tune in next time.